We're under an illusion, folks, unfortunately. But the one way to break this is to reveal natural law. So, slide 45, part 2.1, we are now revealing natural law. Prepare to have your mind blown. Prepare to encounter information which will unlock your potential, unlike any other, if you actually truly apply it. There is no faith necessary. You can either discover this information, apply it, utilize it, come to a realization of it, or you can ignore it, still have it applied to you, ignore it, and suffer. You can be like this man walking off the cliff with a blindfold, or in fact walking off saying, I don't believe in gravity, I don't believe in the fact that I'm going to hit the floor and go splat. No, that's not going to happen. I don't believe in those laws, man. We can't truly know anything. It's just me and my mind. I'm going to walk off this top of this 20-foot building, 20-story building even. I'm going to walk off and I'm going to fly off into space and I'm going to go, wee! Have fun. You are an idiot. There are laws that exist in the universe for you to understand. If you don't, you're at a disadvantage, especially with true natural law, the real deep understanding of the human psyche and the ways that we manifest things. When it really comes to that, not only do we suffer from not understanding them in our daily lives and in the karmic way, we suffer because it's being used against us. So we suffer doubly. So you doubly need to focus. You need to listen up, focus on the principles. The word principles coming from the Latin principia, simply meaning first things. We must focus on the first things because the first things come first. First things first is necessary. Without principles, we are walking off the cliff with a blindfold. So natural law and its effects exists regardless of your belief. It's not a faith, not a religion. It's not a cult. It's not a group. It's not a fringe belief system or a subreddit or a Twitter account. It is the underlying laws and foundational principles of the entire universe. It is for you to discover and adhere to. Similar to the other laws of science and mathematics, for example, as we've seen, gravity. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. Natural law will always exist. You will always hit the ground when you jump off a building. We cannot change it. We can simply apply by it and realize, maybe I can apply my understanding of gravity by not walking off this building and instead going down some stairs to get me to the bottom floor. Maybe that's a better idea. Ignorance of these laws, carelessness and outright disregard and opposition of these laws will mean that you are unprepared or going against its effects. It means that the effects will be either unprepared and or purposefully worse off based on the creation giving you what you get for opposing the laws. And I'll discuss, karma isn't instantaneous. It's not as soon as you do one wrongdoing, a bird poo plops on your head, It may take time. It may even be in another life, or it may even be, once this life ends. Either way, the universe, the creator, the creation, it's all about cosmic justice. It's all about what's right. So you cannot ignore these laws because you will be unprepared. So you can't exactly sit here and argue with me about the importance of being prepared for something that will apply to you regardless, okay? So knowledge of natural law will allow you to really understand how we should act, what we can and can't do, and ultimately, when applied, how we can attract what we really, really want and really need. We can find our purpose and live it. So if you want to truly turn this light on, turn on the light bulb, turn the internal eye on, take off the blindfold, then stay on the journey. So you must understand the occult. We've already sort of touched on this, but really, when I say the occult, I can almost guarantee 9 out of 10, maybe 9.9 out of 10 people, unless you've already come across my work, most of you, if not basically all, will immediately have this flash image in your mind of inverted pentagrams and Satanists and witches and rituals and candles and goats and sacrifice. Perfect example of how you have been mind controlled, how you've been manipulated. And you may not like that fact. You may get defensive about the fact that I'm telling you someone has implanted beliefs into your mind. Same goes for when we talk about anarchy. What's the first thing that pops into your mind, both in an image and in a word, when I say anarchy? Oh, chaos, riots, slavery, fighting, and laws of the jungle. What if I was to tell you that true anarchy is basically the exact opposite of that? Just as the occult is the exact opposite of what you have been programmed to believe it is. Doesn't mean to say that there's not negative sides of the occult, and it doesn't mean to say that if anarchy were to come about, that there is not the possibility of chaos. What actually the truth is that the occult is a neutral thing. There is a light and dark side because it is simply dealing with knowledge. It's dealing once again with science, with that which we can know. And the occult simply means hidden. It comes from the Latin occultus, which in of itself comes from the Latin occultare, coming also from oculus, but in short basically means hidden, or to hide, to conceal, to keep secret, especially with oculus, meaning eye. Ultimately, the occult is hidden information, that which has been hidden from sight, from both our actual eyes and our inner eye. It is simply that which has been hidden. This can, of course, be hidden things about, rituals and magic, or it can be hidden, esoteric information. It's that which has been hidden. This is the secret of secrets. There's the hidden knowledge about consciousness, hidden knowledge about nature, the human psyche, and the laws of the universe. This is hidden due to ancient preservation and manipulation and destruction and ignorance, etc., of those who do not care especially, they do not care to know it. And there is a power differential because, of course, there are those who understand and there are those who do not. And if someone does not know something, they are left in the dark. The owls come along that can see in the dark and they swoop in and you're toast. The most hidden knowledge is natural law, because if humanity understood it, world rulership would end overnight. Human self-inflicted suffering would dramatically decrease. So there is a light versus dark. On slide 48, I've got an image here that shows the first things that come up when I search up occult on Google. These are the images that come up as soon as I search that up on Google. This is a perfect example of obfuscation. They have twisted and inverted and, of course, made it one side what the occult is. The occult is not only inverted pentagrams and Satan and devil worshippers and snakes and rituals and sacrifice. The occult is simply hidden information about the self and the universe. And this is what's coming up immediately on Google. Just like with anarchy, as soon as you search that up, you'll see rioters and hooded people and people smashing windows and Molotovs and burning cars and riots. It's a mind control technique. It's a psyop. They are purposefully changing what comes up on search engines to twist what people think something is, to keep out the outsiders. Because, of course, the people that actually rule the world, they are ancient occultists. They are people that hide, keep hidden, and use to manipulate with this information. And if people start looking into that, if I was to search up occult and it was coming up with things that are related to the true esoteric good occult, light occult, let's say, people maybe would look into it. They'd think, I want to be like this person with all their chakras bursting open and they have metaphorical wings and they can basically be like magicians within this planet. I would like to do that. If that came up with when people searched up the occult, it's toast, because people are going to actually look into this esoteric information and then the power decreases. But instead, if people search it up and they go, oh, that's satanic, that's devil worship, that's evil, occult stuff, no way. Keeps off the outsiders, keeps off the profane, and brushes away the peeps, the ants, the cockroaches. Keeps them away. But people like me, people like hopefully you, realize, it's just one side of the coin, and it's just a technique to keep people away from actually understanding what's truly going on. What matters, the difference between the light and dark, is what is done with it. And most importantly, as we'll see with just tools in general, but also knowledge, it's about the consciousness of the user. That is what matters, and that is what would determine the outcome. So ultimately, we want to become de-occultists. We want to reveal this information, keep it, we want to get it out of hiding, reveal it to the average person, help everyone free their minds, and change the world situation for good in accordance with the creator and not the opposer. So true light occult is actually what we're seeing on this slide here. It's the complete expansion of consciousness. Like I say, imagine if you search up on Google occult and images like this came up. People would realize, maybe I would like to do something like that, because that looks like a person that is very mentally aware and connected to all of creation. Maybe I would like to do that. Maybe that seems like something that I'm almost here to do in this lifetime, instead of, drag goats and snakes and demons. Folks, awaken your consciousness, free your mind, connect with creator. That is what the true occult should be. As well as this, you look outside of the material plane, you do some searching, do some discovery, you look into the esoteric, and you look in the inner workings of the universe. Mystical, incredible things will appear when you take a journey into this direction. So like I say, knowledge and the occult is neutral. It's just like a tool. It is a tool, just like the occult is knowledge as well. What matters is what's done with it and the user and their consciousness. So you must become an occultist, or for a better term, you must become a de-occultist. Like I say, you must reveal the information, because resistance to this information is futile. It still applies. So your best job is to understand it deeply and use it to create what you'd want and what you need. So respect existence or expect resistance, because it is necessary to understand and study the occult. Otherwise, we will not know ourselves truly, and we will not understand the world around us. If people know more about how to manifest what they want and how the mind works, you are only setting yourself up for failure and to be controlled. Unless you possess this knowledge about the self, the universe, etc., the occult, the unseen laws, going within, once you do that, you can help others do the same. Before it's too late, before, unfortunately, in the next few years, when stuff really starts to get real dystopian, unfortunately, before we get to that point where it's, getting closer and closer to midnight. We have to wake people up before that point comes. So an occultist is simply one who studies the hidden laws of nature, uncovering the secrets of the universe and the human psyche, dealing with the realm of the seen and unseen. The term occult has been greatly misinterpreted as witchcraft, as evil or satanic, and this is to keep people away from it, to push off the outsiders, like I say, push it aside, just instantly, make people think of something else and avoid it. So the information stays hidden. It stays hidden from what is known as the unbegun or the profane, or as the elite masters love to call you, the dead. You must turn your eye on and switch on that light bulb of consciousness. Other than being a facade, people are resistant to the occult due to atheism, or rigid scientific belief known as scientism, where they just religiously believe the scientific institutions, or rigid materialism, skepticism, a false education. Like I say, you've been falsely tricked into immediately thinking that the occult is something else that it's not, or that it's only one thing, or perhaps left brain dominance, and the biggest, religion. Your priest loves to tell you how, don't look into the occult, that's nasty demon worship stuff. When actually, no, fool, the true occult, the true esoteric information is what your religion actually should be. Dunce, okay? To become an occultist or a de-occultist, to truly look into the esoteric information, one of the things you will almost immediately come across is the fact that there is no rightful person to stand between you and God, because it's all one and the same. There are no rightful priests and pastors and popes and bishops and prime ministers, kings and queens. It's all an illusion. It's all a label. It's all a manipulation tactic. They are liars. They are fools. They are scum. You must realize it's a one-to-one connection with Creator, and then you must help every other person, because when you really understand the occult, you'll realize there is no difference. We're all one and the same, and as one suffers, all suffer. Our job here is in the aggregate. We must connect with the Creator ourselves, and not speak to Mr. Priest Man that will tell you that the demons from the occult will come and get you in the night. It's neutral information. There are positive sides, and that's what we must focus on. But once again, we can know both sides, because then we know the enemy and we know the self as well. Most people are hugely resistant to the fact that the goal of the top world elites, the true goal motivator, the real New World Order, goes way beyond money, goes way beyond even power and ego and pride. It is a war for information, but more importantly, it is a war for your mind, for your consciousness, for your soul, your care, your love, your potential, your humanity. They want your soul, and they will stop at nothing to get it. And unfortunately, in more ways than not, they already have you. If I was to bring up certain topics with most people, 9 people out of 10, maybe more, I bring up certain topics and their face will immediately switch into Agent Smith. I'm coming to get ya. What you just said was incorrect. How dare you question the system? You are my enemy. It's all mind control. Anyone can become an agent at any time unless they unplug their mind and realize what's truly going on. And once you break through and open that door, there's no going back. As unfortunate as it may be, it's a false choice. There is no other choice than having to go the whole way. You can stagnate and fall back. You must eventually, one way or another, get to the end path. You must get to the end to the final goal, and why not start now instead of becoming an agent of the Matrix? This is not an occultist. You don't have to sit inside a pentagram full of candles and burn some sage and become a Wiccan and start bending over worshipping the sun. All you have to do is look in a book, look in a mirror, maybe write a few things down, ponder, maybe try some certain substances that will expand your consciousness if necessary, if you want a shortcut. Understand the laws of the universe. That's what an occultist truly is, or in fact a de-occultist. So if we want to understand what natural law is, we must first understand what natural law is not. You must know the difference, because yes, there is a difference. And once again, mind control alert. If I was to talk to most people about natural law, what's the first thing that comes to their head? Darwin, a lion eating a gazelle, walking around in the trees, looking at the plants and studying them, and talking about the different atoms and microbiology. Hey, they are aspects of nature, sure, but they are not natural law. There is a difference. Lion killing a gazelle is not natural law. It's not the law of the jungle or Darwinian macrobiological evolution. It is the governing dynamics of creation. It's the laws of the universe. Natural law is absolutely not Darwinian evolution. It's not survival of the fittest. It's not the law of the jungle. It's not the natural order. It's not every man for himself or dog eat dog. That's the illusion. That's ultimately one of the tenets of Satanism, which the world elite want you to believe in, and they believe in themselves ultimately. Natural law is not any form of common law or some other sort of court law, man-made nonsense. It's not morally relative. It's not some arbitrary construct made by humans. It exists regardless of human mind. Natural law is not relevant to lower order animals. It is only applicable to beings, sentient beings, with the cognitive development, more specifically the neocortex development or the prefrontal cortex development, the sentience and the more developed consciousness, and the rationality, most importantly, the rationality to conceive and discover these laws. In other words, humans. We are sentient beings. We have a developed enough brain where we can actually rationalize and think and reason things out, and we can actually discover the laws of the universe. A lion or a cat or a crab or a snail aren't going to come up to me and start talking to me about the inner workings of nature and, the solipsistic ideology. They're not going to start talking about things like that. They may be conscious in some form. That's certainly a discussion we can have. They are certainly sentient, and that's why when we talk later about harm, they apply when it comes to not harming any sentient beings. Animals are still sentient, but they do not have the cognitive ability to conceive of these laws. And therefore, it only applies to humans and beings perhaps even above that. It applies to us because we're able to reason it out. So natural law is not relevant to these lower world animals, so we can't blame a lion for killing a gazelle because ultimately can't really know the difference. Ultimately, whereas we can realize, I am a human, I own my body. I do not own another person's body. If I was to claim ownership over their body, that is incorrect, that is illusory, false, harmful, immoral, etc. We can do that. A mouse cannot do that. So it does not apply to them, but it applies to us, whether we understand it or not. And on top of this, moral relativity must be consciously opposed, because there is a fact of the matter. There is a fact of the matter. Morality, right and wrong, good and bad, does not come from the mind of man. It is inherent to creation. The belief in moral relativity is the root and the starting place and the cause of slavery and the root foundational principle of all tyranny and fascism. Moral relativity, the belief that man comes up with what is right and wrong and it changes on a whim or what's socially agreeable. The belief in that will only and will always bring more and more suffering. It is illusion. It's foolish at best and outright evil at worst. And unfortunately, too many people are all too happy to tell you, we can make up what right and wrong is. They just got to go into the law books and change that and the Second Amendment and the Constitution. Hey, look, we can write certain things down and we can specify things in things like, Constitution and whatever. It doesn't mean it's incorrect, but look, the true laws of the creation are inherent to creation, of course. So writing them down and putting them into words is only specifying them. It's only explaining that which already is. We cannot create any new laws, ever. We cannot justify anything that is immoral, because the word justification means to create which is right, and we cannot do that. We can only apply what is right and live accordingly. And as these lovely images show us, perfect examples of where moral relativity brings us. Lovely leaders that definitely don't kill millions and millions of people and definitely didn't do anything wrong. It brings about those. It brings about the belief in the righteousness of those and the outright worship of them. People laying down their lives for them happily. And those that murder in their name. The ones that just follow the orders and say, sir, yes, sir. I've got the authority to do what I do, even though we can't, if no one ever actually had this right in the first place, I can't give it away, they can't give it away to me, but I still have the right because people said I have the right, even though that's not possible. I'm an order follower, I'm a dog, I can't think for myself, I just follow orders and I do the harm. Man, come on. You call yourself an adult and you believe that morality is relative. Moral relativity is the idea that objective morality does not exist, that there is no such thing as morality in nature, that right or wrong are subjective constructs of man, that it actually can vary by location, by the time, by the circumstance, the preference, the division by the man-made lines on the earth. We can think that it changes, that in Brazil it's right to do one thing, but in Canada it's completely wrong to do something else, to do the same thing. Come on, man. It's one planet. It's child's view, but hopefully you can already see this. Morality is actually objective. Right and wrong exist independently of people. It exists despite the existence of human mind. We have no ability to change, good or bad. We can only choose to follow. Human freedom is based upon the morality of aggregate society. The belief in its subjectivity is the opposition to natural law and could only bring about chaos and slavery, as I've probably said enough times. It can only bring about one thing. It's a literal flowchart. Almost, as we'll see. It's a process. It's a calculation, as we'll see. Morality and freedom, proportional, okay? This is ultimately moral relativity. It's immoral. It's man-made law. Just because you have a nice little hammer, smack it on a table with your lovely black robe, doesn't mean that what you say actually has any bearing on truth. You cannot make laws. You cannot judge another. There is only one judge. And I'm sure you can guess who that is. It's the people upstairs. It's the big one upstairs, let's say, you know. That's the only true judgment. Cosmic judgment. Not little man-made person that, you know, may have had a bad morning and so they'll change their judgment accordingly. They're flawed in more ways than we can count. And people believe in this nonsense under the threat of violence, as we'll ultimately see. So, without further ado, to really fully explain natural law, now that we know what it's not, natural law really has many names. Some may call it cause and effect. Every cause has its effect and vice versa. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Chance is simply a law not recognized. Natural law also may be called the law of attraction, or natural law may be just simply known as manifestation. It's that which you give out, you attract back to you. Energy flows where attention goes. It may be known as moral law, the laws of God, the laws of the Creator, or what someone's talking about when they say that I am a good person. It's moral law. It's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to you, or, better yet, don't do that to others which you wouldn't want done to you. Karma. What goes around comes around. You reap what you sow. What you give, you shall receive. These are all just different expressions and names for natural law. But to put it blatantly, to put it in its best form and its best explanation, natural law is the universal, non-man-made, binding and immutable, meaning unchangeable, conditions that govern the consequences of behavior. Cause and effect, in other words. Universal spiritual laws which govern consciousness. Natural law is cause and effect, manifestation, moral law, golden rule, the golden rule, karma. Universal conditions that govern everything. It's as simple as that. And there's many ways we can explain it, as we'll see. There's many different expressions of it. I'll be giving you the basic rundown explanation of its laws and its effects, let's say. So, natural law, ultimately, the elegant truth of it. Natural law is expressed as card 11 in the major arcana of the tarot. It's justice, cosmic justice. It's the justice card. It's the sword or the axe, the scales of justice, the king, the true one creator king enthroned on his throne with his lovely robe, red and gold, you know, the two pillars, the sun rising behind him with the curtain, you know, cosmic justice. It's natural law. It's the creator. Natural law is a science. There are natural laws that can be directly observed. The state of humanity is a direct consequence of aggregate behavior of society. Freedom and morality are directly proportional. We reap what we sow on an individual and societal level. As freedom increases, morality increases. As freedom declines, morality declines, vice versa. It all depends about the aggregate morality of humanity. Freedom will manifest accordingly. We reap what we sow in that regard, both in this lifetime in the 3D and in the other dimensions. As we've discussed, it works first on the individual level and then that spreads out to the societal aggregate level. Our consciousness, our conscience as well, must align with the objective laws of morality. Otherwise, of course, we're walking around with a blindfold, we're walking in the dark, we're walking off the cliff in ignorance. We must definitively know which actions are right and wrong, right or wrong. Something is right if it does not cause harm to another sentient being. It's as simple as this. Let me reiterate. If this one simple concept was understood by the mass consciousness of humanity as just second nature, just instant, and most people do somewhat have this idea because it is written on the human heart ultimately. It's not, as much as we can discover natural law, it's written on the human heart. If everyone just realised that a human right, that something is right, if it does not cause harm to another sentient being. If everyone understood that as second nature and truly lived by it, understood what harm is, as we'll discuss, if they simply did that and didn't harm any other and lived in minimal harm, least harm possible, and didn't support institutions and systems of harm, we could live, like I say, in a world of beyond imagination. We could be exploring the stars, ultimately, if we simply just understood what we have the right to do and therefore don't have the right to do. If we simply understood that, and it's I don't know whether to laugh or cry by the fact that I have to sit here as still a young person, having to sit down and explain in full seriousness, in full, complete, absolute effort and seriousness and genuineness of teaching what right and wrong is to anyone that will listen from ages 0 to 100. Anyone that will listen, I have to explain what right and wrong is. Genuinely, seriously, and not even in a egotistical, I know what's right and you don't. It's not egotistical. It's way beyond that. It's, like I say, moral obligation. I have to sit down and teach you what's right and wrong and explain that the actual fact of the matter has been hidden and that most of our belief systems, if not everything that we thought we know, is completely illusory. I have to sit down and explain that, let alone all the deep knowledge of the occult. I have to sit down and explain this, and people are still resistant to this, and people won't even accept this as aggregate consciousness probably in my lifetime. And that's the sad fact of the matter, but I'll have to do my best. But come on, folks. I want to laugh, but it would just be... I don't even know at this point, but hey, like I say, I'll do the best that I can. Simply, if we understood that right and wrong exist, and that something is right if it does not cause harm to another being, and something is wrong if it causes harm to another sentient being. It's as simple as that. Natural law. Samuel Adams said this: "The natural liberty of a man is to be free from any superior power on earth, and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the law of nature for his rule." Think what you want of the man and what the founders of America did. Doesn't matter. There was freedom that was in the forefront of these people's minds, and this quote is powerful when we understand that these people realized, and people don't even now realize, I have to explain to the people this: there is no legitimate external power. True human freedom is to be the ruler of oneself, and to have the only thing that determines our actions and rules us is the law of nature. People don't understand this, and for as long as that stays to be the fact, we are screwed. One thing I did forget to mention, however, was if we simply look at the term itself, natural law, we should understand it this way, that the word natural simply means inherent, based in truth and reality, and not man-made. That's all that natural means. And as we saw, NTR, nature from the Egyptian, etc., spirit and God, nature, natural simply means that which is inherent and truthful, and law is an unchangeable, binding, immutable, existing condition that exists regardless of human mind, like I say. So natural law, as we've discussed, And as we'll very much discuss in the future, this should become second nature, muscle memory, instant, boom. You could say it in your sleep blindfolded, you know. Natural and law is an inherent, unchangeable, immutable existing condition that governs the laws of human nature, morality, everything. The laws of nature. It's not the laws of the jungle, as we've seen. So, of course, when we're speaking about morality, we must understand there is a difference between right and wrong. Right, in other words, is that which is correct, that which is moral. Correct being that which is based in truth, and that which is moral, which is in harmony with natural law. So, that which is right is an action, not just a possession or a thing or a something we deserve. You know, water, food, shelter, etc. They may be things that we need. They aren't things that are our rights. Our rights are actions that do not result in harm of another sentient being. The reason for this is because that is all that we have the right to do. When we get down to the foundational principles of it, as we will, we'll understand that the only thing that we have the right to do is to do no harm. As long as what we do, because we can sit here all day long talking about what we are able to do. You know, I can throw a mug across a room. I can drink a glass of water. There's things I can do all day long in going on to infinity. But once we understand what we cannot do, it's very simple. And there's only a few things, as we'll see, that are actually immoral. So it's very easy to understand what we can't do, to understand what we can, as we'll see. It's known as apophysis. But ultimately, that which is right is an action that does not harm another sentient being. It's as simple as that. And therefore, that which is wrong, also known as that which is incorrect or not based in truth, or that which is immoral, which is in opposition to natural law, is of course an action or actions based in the fact that it results in harm to other sentient beings. It's as simple as that. And I must also say, it goes without saying, there are many people I could thank for the inspiration of this presentation, but more than any other, and some of these slides, as for example this image here, some of the slides actually come from his presentations, but Mark Passio is necessary. If you are not familiar with the works of this man, I do not know what to say. You are missing out beyond comprehension. Go to whatonearthishappening.com and look at as much of this man's content as you can. Take it all in from a foundational principles level, not just a realm of taking offense. Look at this man's information and you will be astonished. So hats off, respect, and this presentation is dedicated to this man. Thank you. We all have to do the best we can to try and awaken our fellow man. That's all I can say. It even rhymes. So we're going to do a deep dive into what harm is and ultimately what we can and cannot do when it comes down to actual actions, because of course it's actions that cause harm or do not cause harm. Realistically, you can boil it down to 7 main actions. 7. You could realistically with these 7 transgressions against moral law, and it would be a lot more suitable. So, natural law. This is based upon principles, and it is based upon truth. It's foundational. It's inherent to creation. It is harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding. It is universal as it exists and applies everywhere in the universe regardless of location. And it is eternal and immutable, meaning unchangeable, cannot change. It exists and applies for as long as the universe exists and cannot ever be changed. In opposition to this, however, the thing that most people unfortunately believe in, man's law, this is based upon dogmatic beliefs. constructs of mind. It is complied with due to the fear of punishment instead of harmonized with. It's all based upon violence and force. It differs with location based upon the whim of the legislators or the quote-unquote makers or authors. It is based in moral relativism. It changes with time based upon the whim of the legislators. Once again, moral relativism. It's, if someone says it, it must be right, you know. If Hitler says, go kill a couple million Jews, you best damn believe that was absolutely morally just when he told those order followers to go and do that. It's all good, man. It's morality is relative. Hey, man's law. He said it was right, and everyone at that time believed it was right. They all agreed it was okay. That means it's okay, don't you know? That means they made something right, and then now, because of time and location, that's completely changed. That's immoral now. Yeah, no, you'd get locked up for that now. Just this on its face, people can't even see the inherent contradictions. Okay, so 7 is a very powerful number. You're going to see this you're going to see this appear very many times when you're looking into the occult and just spirituality in general. But of course, also the number 8, but that's a whole different story. But ultimately, there are 7 principles to natural law. There are also 7 transgressions against natural law. 7 is the septenary. It's a very powerful number. It is the number of completion, ultimately, the completion in the form of man, especially 777, hence why they have it on the casino machines, because they know that it subconsciously attracts to our mind because it's a very powerful number. But nonetheless, there are 7 principles to natural law, the Hermetic principles they are also known as. And there is also the 8th master key, which is often left out and often forgotten about. These laws are eternally at work, regardless of your awareness of them, and they are observable, testable, and they must be understood, ultimately. So there are these 7 principles. There are 7 major expressions of natural law. These are all brought together and brought into manifestation and into actuality by a powerful and forgotten about 8th principle, which we'll see. Observing, learning, and applying these laws, once again, will grant you with what you desire. They will allow you maximum freedom and harmony, least resistance. So, the first natural law principle, and take note, not only is it important that there are 7 principles, or 8 even, which is also important, not only that, but each principle being in the number that it is also very symbolic. Take note, there's a reason why this is the first one. There's a reason why there's one that is the 3rd, etc. That there is the last and the 8th, etc. They all are in their exact place for a reason. It's symbolic. This is what we're working with in terms of the occult. You have to work very correspondingly and very symbolically and allegorically. You have to work it all together like that, and it takes time and effort and going back and forth to it, but eventually you get it. And so the first principle of natural law is mentalism. This states that the all is mind. This means 2 things, ultimately. First, it means the universe is mental. It's one big mind, that everything we see, all of the universe and all of creation, even the creator itself, and humanity, animals, everything, even just energy, vibration, atoms, everything, it's all an expression of the mind. It's all a form of the one big mind of God, ultimately. It's one and the same. When you get down to quantum mechanics, you realize this. You'll see this, and the modern science perfectly starting to show this. There is no separation. It's all one big thing, and ultimately, on the spiritual level, it's all one manifestation of the mind. But then, on top of this, And alongside this, all things and events and all of creation, or everything that we do and everything that exists in this earth especially, is a manifestation of originally being in the realm of thoughts and in the realm of the mind. Everything that we see and have created and experience once existed first in the realm of the mind. If you look at a skyscraper, that didn't just appear out of nowhere. The fairies didn't just come along and create it. People had to come together, had to use their mind and think and plan it out and design it. It was in the realm of the mind and thoughts, and then emotions hopefully aligned with it. And then actions. As we'll see, this is what creates. Everything once began in the realm of the mind, and that's where it exists. And then on top of that, everything within creation is one big mind. It's all one expression of the ultimate capital M mind. And then you think, you feel, and then finally you act. And it's important that you do all of these in correspondence with each other instead of having them be divided, because then it opens the room for being able to be manipulated and having to say one thing and then do another. It's, we get into muddy waters when we do that, and unfortunately that's what everyone does. Once they're in alignment, then you really manifest thoughts, emotions, actions, which we'll get onto. If not, we've already seen, the expressions of consciousness. Thus, it begins in the mind, and you are responsible for what you create, because we have free will in this plane of existence. Secondly, correspondence. Number 2, as above, so below. You've probably heard about this before. There's a movie about it. It's quite good. Not very relevant to the principle, though, as such. It's more about the concept of hell. But either way, this principle states, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without. In other words, that which is above is like to that which is below. They're one and the same. There is simply the above, which is the macrocosm, the very large, the outer, the universe, the larger. And then there is the below, the microcosm, the very small, the individual, the human psyche, for example. Each are reflections of each other. It's one big mirror. The universe is a mirror. They are self-similar across all scales. It's the reason why you'll see certain things within nature having like Fibonacci sequences within them, like shells and snails, things like that, the ways that certain things are designed. It reflects on the smaller scale, on the lower, and it also reflects on the outer because it's one and the same. They all work very similarly. It's one big mirror. This also works with our actions. It corresponds, as above, so below. And you'll see with these principles, to really, really understand them, that you have to just spend so much time not only revising and remembering them, actually just trying them out and just sort of thinking of so many different examples of when they actually work, because then you can actually use them and be able to predict what's going to happen and how the best way to act to bring about the desired outcome. It's all about manifestation, but for what is necessary, not just ego. It's one big mirror, ultimately. There is harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the physical, mental, and spiritual realms. There is no separation because everything in the universe, including you, originates from the one divine source. The same pattern is expressed on all planes of existence, from the smallest electron to the largest star. All is one. You must know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods. It's one and the same, as above, so below. As within, so without. Vibration. Nothing rests. Everything, even on the most microscopic level, is moving. Nothing is completely still. Even at the time of death, everything is still vibrating. There is still energy within it. It's just simply transformed. It's moved on. It's transformed. Hasn't been destroyed. Never is still. Everything is constantly moving and vibrating in some form. If you're somewhat familiar with spirituality, you'll probably be familiar with the idea of, there's frequency and energy and vibration everywhere, man. Hey, it's cliche, but it's not incorrect. realistically, when you do look down to the microscopic level and you look into quantum mechanics, things like that, you will come to understand it is energy and frequency and, vibration, things like that. It's not just, physical, solid matter, rock solid, everything just, 3D. There's incredible things that are going on that you could not even imagine. And most people deny it. And our job is to discover it. That's what it's all about. But ultimately, it's all based around vibration, mainly. When seen at the smallest scale, the entire universe is pure energy and vibration, with everything having its own frequency. And of course, there are levels to it where you want to have a higher frequency instead of a low frequency. It's the whole thing of high vibes, vibrations, man, That's what it's all about. All matter is simply a form of energy, vibrating in a certain manner to manifest a certain state. And then we, of course, perceive it through our different perceptual functions. We perceive it in a certain way, and this can obviously differ. That's why perception is different to the truth, because, of course, we may perceive things differently. Someone may hear one thing, someone hears another. There may be an actual truth to the matter, but either way, it's our perception of it that is different. Do you remember the whole what colour is the dress thing, There was an actual truth to the matter of what colour it was, but there was people that saw different things. Perception was different to the truth. It can waver, Next, we have polarity. You may be familiar with this because, of course, it's best expressed through the symbol of the yin-yang. It's polarity. The duality reality. This simply states that everything is dual. Everything has a dual nature to it. There are, opposing sides to everything. Everything has its poles, its opposites, It also has its genders, but we'll see about that. Everything has its pair of opposites. There are two sides to a coin. Opposites, however, are identical in nature. They are of the same thing. Hence why there is the small black dot in the white part of the yin yang and the small white dot in the black side, because there are parts of each other in there, because they're of the same thing. They're all made of the same, but it's just different in degree. Hot and cold, in a sense, are of the same thing because they're both still temperatures. However, they're different degrees. One is of the high degrees, hot. One is of the lows, cold. It's same in nature, different in degree. Polarity. It exists in nature. Simple as that. Then we have a rhythm, stating that everything flows. All things rise and fall. Everything flows out and in. There is a rhythm to everything. We just may not be able to readily see it. And there are many different ways this rhythm can express and be used. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. And rhythm compensates. So, in other words, simply, there is rhythm in everything. It's not just complete randomness. There are ebbs and flows, there are rises and falls. There's patterns, It allows us to predict things out in the world. It's not all just complete randomness thing, atoms smashing together. There's a smoothness to it, and especially when you combine that with things like vibration and energy, it can be very beautiful if you can actually perceive it. And perhaps, hey, take a couple handfuls of psilocybin, and you'll see the rhythm in things and the vibration. Now, most importantly, cause and effect. The two planes in which we can better understand the world and what goes on. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. And we've already touched upon this. When trying to actually deal with things and trying to actually come to solutions and healing, we must, of course, be able to analyze the effect. We want to know what happened, but we must understand and focus on the cause. We need to get to the causal factors, the basic causal realm, it's why I say the two planes. There are two planes to it. There is the effect and the cause. Everything is governed by law. Chance is actually just law that is unrecognized. There are no accidents or coincidences, like I say. And in fact, there are many different planes of causality. That's why it may not be so easy and so straightforward to actually get to what the causal factor is, but we can get to it nonetheless. And of course, it's necessary if we actually want to get a solution. I may have to even become a broken record about this fact. Causal factors always foundational principles more than anything. There is the mental and the physical realm. These are the two planes that actually, in which everything actually exists in, is where it's the causal realms. It either it's caused from the mind into the physical, but of course there are the main two planes, which is cause and effect. There is the plane of cause and the plane of effect. All effects in the world are symptoms, and unfortunately in the medical industry, they focus on the symptoms and they try and treat them, when actually we must either prevent or cure or come to the root cause and deal with it that way. There is no power in the effects because it's already occurred. We must understand the why. All power to affect change lies in the mind. We cannot affect change and actually bring cures about when working in the manifested reality. So to further explain the two planes, we have the realm of causality, the beginning of manifestation, the why, the underlying and preceding all events, via the conscious and the subconscious in the mind, once again, is the reason why it's the first principle. And when the consciousness is focused on the root, not the symptoms, the condition can actually be changed and understood. We must get to the root cause. Not only, in everything that we do, in shadow work, in real world solutions, in health, everything comes from the realm of causality. It's a universal principle. You can see it just on its face. That's how it is. There is an individual and collective level of manifestation. We create our own lives, but as we've seen, as the individuals build up, this helps to co-create the human condition at large. Then we have the realm of effects, the 3D, the manifested reality, a result which actually has underlying causes. It is that which has occurred, which allows no ability to change. Ignorance of causality equals the perpetual self-inflicted suffering. Focusing on the realm of effects only, especially, will only trap your consciousness. A cure is never achieved by focusing on treating the symptoms. So, gender. You may have to cancel me on Twitter for this one. Boo-hoo. Cry me a river. Get as mad as you like, but there is gender that exists in principles. It's not a construct. Yes, it exists in the realm of the mind in the fact that everything does, but it is a principle of nature. It's not just based on feelings, unfortunately. Boo-hoo, there is a truth to the matter. Gender is in everything. There is a masculine and a feminine that is expressed in everything, even in plumbing, even in woodwork, even in computing. There are male and female parts to everything. It expresses in everything, okay? It manifests on all planes, both in the mental and in the world. We have the masculine and feminine parts of the brain, the sacred masculine, sacred feminine, as we'll see. It's both physical and conceptual. We have the masculine, or the yang, which is the active, it should say on this slide, the intellectual, the self-defense principle, the dominator. Then we have the feminine, the yin, which is the receptive, the intuitive, non-aggressive, and submissive force. Or, as I was saying, like in plumbing, the old saying goes, men have poles, females have holes. It expresses in everything. Chuckle along as much as you like, but it's a fact. Now we have the 8th principle, the master key, the forgotten principle, and it is that which enshrouds the entire understanding of natural law and everything that's created in the universe, especially in alignment with these laws of nature, is bound and brought together, let's say, brought into actuality by this 8th principle. It is the circle around all of these 7 principles, which we'll see it's represented in a certain symbol. There is a 8th final principle which brings all of this into actuality. It's the master key, the lost generative principle of care, true care, capital C, care. This is ultimately what we care to put our willpower into, especially daily, but in the most time, more than anything else, what we put our care into, what we care to put our will into, care to do, because action is what is important, that is what is created. Our thoughts and our actions driven by care. Therefore, the quality of our experience is dependent on the presence or the lack of care. So when we act in the world, if we have the true care, or what is known as agape love, the true love and care for creation and what is right and what is good and the creator and everything in the universe, we have this true care, this true love, this true will, and it overlaps and swallows up all of the other 7 principles. It puts them all together, and you use all of those together in harmony to form this one seed of life. This is what is crucial when it comes to manifesting our reality and aligning our actions with the laws of nature. We must have care, and we must be conscious of where we put our care in the world, and what we care to do, and what we care to say, think, feel, etc. We must be conscious of it, because it is what is you finally allowing everything to be brought into action is what we care to do, and that's what brings manifestation. As some people say in the New Age movement, what you think about most of the time is what you'll bring into actuality. It's half correct. It's also about your actions, but in a sense, yes, what you focus on most of the time will come about, because it corresponds with your care and what you care to do. So it's half truth, but either way, care. Now to summarize. The natural law principles, it of course goes beyond this, and this is a very even surface level understanding of true natural law, but it very much portrays the basics of it and your general understanding. The first principle: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, and then finally, this is all wrapped with the generative principle, the big G that is in the compass and square of Freemasonry, known as care. Genere, creation, care. The best way to actually understand this and remember this, and actually the best way it's expressed in symbol, as a lot of the occult deals with, the seed of life. The 7 circles going round, so you have blue, ultimately the 7 colours of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, the colours of the chakras, the 7 principles of nature, of natural law, the 7 transgressions against natural law. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we have the circle in the middle. Then we have the final seed expression coming out from the middle where it's all born from. It's the seed of life. And this is all encased with that big circle on the outside, the crust, the outer, the exoteric. This is the generative principle of care, the final eighth principle that it's all inside of. This is the best way to understand it. And it's beautiful. This is sacred geometry. And it's not just someone squiggling down some circles with a compass, you know? So now we've pretty deeply discussed what natural law actually is in the sense of revealing it and understanding the, you could call it grammar stage of natural law, understanding, you know, there is a difference between right and wrong. There are different dynamics and forces. There are the 7 principles. Now, most importantly, almost, we have to apply natural law because that is what is ultimately important, because we can know infinite amounts of knowledge, but it's what's done with it that is what's important. So the application is everything. Of course, we must have the foundational knowledge, but the application is where abundance comes into play and we get the results that we hope to achieve. So ultimately, this is going to be discussing how to apply natural law into your life and ultimately be able to easily evaluate the morality of any situation, be able to actually judge things correctly and understand truly what's going on and therefore eventually help other people. So what would you say if I was to tell you that you're a sovereign being? That in fact you are the true rightful royalty? Well, if I were to tell you that there are no rightful slaves, that there is actually no legitimate authority that exists within nature. You are a sovereign being. You own your own body. You cannot own anyone else, and no one else can own you. You must understand your sovereignty and the sovereignty of others. This is what morality is based upon. Because with everything that you should do, everything that you do should have in mind the concept of sovereignty. Well, the word sovereignty, you may have your own idea of what it actually means, but simply to go to the Latin, who'd have guessed, the word sovereign in Latin comes from super, or above, and regnus, or regnum, which means rulership. So, sovereignty simply is above rulership. You are free from rulership, you are not a slave. So when someone is a sovereign being, one is a monarch. They are a arc ruler, one ruler of themselves. Not anyone else is to rule over you. You have to rule over yourself. You have to control and unify your thoughts, emotions, and actions within yourself. As we've discussed, you have to know thyself, look within, etc. It's all about that. It's not even nearly at all about pointing outwards at all. The only true governance and true rulership is over the self. And if you were to disagree and say that someone can rightfully rule you and rightfully rule other people, unfortunately, you have got mental health problems. So at least you know your work. The only rightful rulership is an individual ruling themselves with no external monarch, no external ruler. There is only one ruler, and that is within each of us ruling ourselves, as we only own our own bodies. That's it. So the expressions of natural law, there are many different ones, and well, there are different stages. There are the different polarities and stages and the internal and external expressions, etc. But of course, when we are working with the polarity, we can understand that there is a positive and a negative expression of natural law. There is love and there is fear. There is consciousness or unconsciousness. What we use to create in the world, also known as the generative polarity, is where it all begins. As we progress down this chart in this slide, in slide 70, there is no ability to be able to jump between or skip parts. This is a progression. It's a downwards progression, and you're on either side of it. You either use love to generate what you create, or you use fear. And that's where it begins. The follow with me here through this table, but ultimately it all begins either with the positive or the negative. Are you acting out of love or fear? Some may ask why it's fear and not hate, and that's because fear is actually the true polarity that contracts and squeezes and prevents our consciousness from expanding, and it's what keeps us in a box and keeps us closed in. So love and fear are the generative polarities. They are what we use to create in the world. It's what, if we put our care to do either of those things the most of the time, we will get the result accordingly. That's what is used. And then we go to the initiating expression, how it actually starts, where it fully begins, ultimately in the realm of the mind, as we'll see. But how it actually starts in the beginning is either the possession or the lack of knowledge. So knowledge or ignorance, the acceptance of truth or the refusal of truth. Are you going to either live in love and seek knowledge, or are you going to live in fear and ignore things and think that you know best and think that you're informed even though you don't possess any true information about any subject? It begins either with love, which knowledge is included, or you're in a place of fear and ignorance. Then we have the internal expression, what is going on inside of ourselves, the macrocosm. Do we either have sovereignty within ourselves, or is there confusion? Us as a being, we are either in realization and knowledge of our sovereignty, or we are in ignorance of it, we're living in fear, and ultimately we're going to be living in confusion. These are the internal expressions. You are either a sovereign, as we've seen, you are above or free from rulership, you are an internal monarch, one ruler, monarchos, one ruler. You are either in consciousness of your sovereignty and you're living in that, and therefore love and knowledge follows, or you are confused. There is internal anarchy. There is no ruler in the house of the self. Everyone's just running amok in your mind. Just everything's all divided. And then, of course, as we'll see, the expressions that you get out in your life are only going to be just as divided as those things that are going on inside your mind. So if you're living in fear, ignorance, confusion, unconsciousness, etc., if you live a life of just pure ego and rejection of truth and carelessness, you're going to have confusion, fear, and as we'll see now, you get the external expression, the microcosm, what actually reflects out in society on the aggregate. We either get freedom, or we get control. Freedom truly being external anarchy. As much as people would love to think anarchy is chaos, it's only chaos if people were in that situation and they didn't realize the truth about morality. Do no harm to any other people, don't steal, as we'll see. That is not chaos. Quite the opposite. It's true freedom, because there are no rulers. There are no external rulers. That's why it's external anarchy. However, if you're living in the negative and it's a world of control and fear and violence, ultimately, it's external monarchy, because there is a ruler outside of yourself. There is a king, queen, prime minister, president, dictator telling you what to do, telling you that they have mastery over you, and they do, and they enforce that over violence or fear, etc., or even mind control, which is even worse. And then so in totality, we have the positive and the negative, as we've seen: love, fear, knowledge, ignorance, sovereignty, confusion, freedom, or control. Ultimately, do you live in this expanded form of consciousness in which possibility can actually be taken upon, or are you living in a place of constant cowardice, confusion, stumbling over yourself and making tiny amounts of progress, if any, and just setting yourself up for failure? Ultimately, it's a no-brainer. Which side are you going to go for? Because as you'll see, the manifested result that we actually create is either order or it's chaos, either manifested good or manifested evil. It's up to you on the individual level and it follows on the aggregate level. And unfortunately, too many people are completely head to toe living in fear and ignorance, confusion, control. And what do we see out in the world? We see chaos. You may not be able to recognize it. You may fight me on the fact that there is chaos and slavery. But when we really get to the nitty gritty, when we really get to the definitions and understand what truly is going on, and we understand the foundational principles, we understand things like this of the simple expressions of love and fear, knowledge, ignorance, etc., what true freedom is, you will realize we are in a very bad situation. Let's say that at the very, very least, okay? But we can change it. That's why I'm here. That's why hopefully you can continue on listening, because hopefully we can make a change before it's too late. And just to reiterate, this is not my opinion. This is not a proposition or a theory. This is fact. It's a recognizable and observable truth, a science without in the world, because you can test it yourself. Go and act in a way. The bigger way, the better. Because obviously it'll be more obvious. Act in a way in accordance with love and, higher consciousness, out of a realm of knowledge and, respect of sovereignty and the desire and working towards freedom. You're going to see this almost like a flow chart just continuously go downwards. You're only going to be able to get order and good and freedom when you actually act out of love and you actually act out of knowledge and care, and you're working for the realm of truth instead of just confusion and just working based on emotion only and having no desire to know anything, to just be completely ignorant and confused and not seeking any help, really. You can see it happen for yourself. It's all observable and it's beautiful because it proves with beyond a shadow of doubt its existence, and you don't even need a single person to tell you that that's the fact. You can see for yourself. But unfortunately, too many people are brainwashed where they don't even realize that they can use their own mental facilities to test things out like this. And you can figure out freedom for yourself. And no, we are not free in the whole of society at the moment. We may think we are, and that's even worse because then we do not fight back and we do not recognize the real situation. So order versus chaos, the real natural order. People think chaos would just be if we abolished all laws and everyone just started throwing around Molotovs over the place. Hey, that is chaos. It's why anarchy is not chaos, is because it means no rulers, not no rules. There are rules and it's natural law and it's all we need to know, and it's simple, it's elegant, but just very not understood. So the true, real natural order, well, the idea of order has been flipped on its head purposefully by some lovely people that really have your best intentions in mind. The only true, real order is internal monarchy, the one ruler within yourself, each person ruling themselves, and then there being external anarchy, meaning no, an archon, meaning no ruler. One ruler within for each person, and then no outer ruler. No authority is legitimate because it's not possible. As aggregate society, we cannot give other people's rights to rule over other people if we never had the right to rule over people in the first place. That's all we need to know. Simple as that, really. The rules are natural law. There are no rulers because it doesn't need to be enforced. You enforce it yourself. Obviously, it's a tall task to actually expect people to just have that common sense in them. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's the correct answer. And it's what we must work towards. Otherwise, we are just shooting ourselves in the foot. And worse than just shooting ourselves in the foot, we are shooting ourselves in the brain and the hands and the feet and in the heart, especially. Why do you think it's the biggest killer? Freedom for all via spiritual development, care versus external control via monarchy. In other words, true freedom can only be brought about by spiritual development, a raised awareness awareness of consciousness and the spirit, and true freedom and love, agape love for everything, for what's true, for what's right, instead of just working for money and working for a job and for sports and for pleasure and ego and just supporting the slavery systems. In about 6 days now from when I'm speaking this, we have got an election coming up in the UK, and it's baffling. It's horrendous how many people are still yapping on about saying, oh, I'm voting for X, Y, Z, I'm voting for. For as long as you vote, we have no hope. We are screwed because we are simply giving our compliance and giving our consent to having a ruler, someone rule over us and control us and violently enforce laws over us that we have minimal say in, that we are illusory. We are falsely believing actually we have any say in, especially who actually is running the place. We have zero say in that, because these prime ministers, they're low on the level. It's all a mask. And as I hope you understand, it's all a lie. Monarchy is the only path to all evil and destruction. And unfortunately, we're living in that state now, and people can't recognise the evil and destruction that is going on is because of this. They just think it's money being thrown in the wrong direction, or not enough protests have been going about, Order, true natural order, results through balance, through holistic unity, harmony, justice, cosmic justice, and harmony with truth, instead of bringing about chaos via ignorance, because ignorance is death, not bliss. Ignorance is death. Ignorance is evil, as the Egyptians would say. It's imbalance, it's injustice. There is only one good, knowledge, and only one evil, ignorance. Socrates, one of the wisest philosophers who ever lived. They knew what was going on. People still don't listen. They just like to debate about the existence of people and the little nitty gritty and the everything but the actual true bare bones of it, of we must seek knowledge, we must avoid ignorance, we must live for a higher reason. So the law of freedom, linking right in with order, the only way we can truly free ourselves and bring about freedom in the world is through morality. Freedom is directly proportional to morality. As one increases, the other increases. As one declines, the other declines. Vice versa. They're one and the same. They follow each other, because as more moral population gets, the more free they get. Vice versa. Without freedom, there can be no morality, said Carl Jung. Spot on. People say they want freedom, but their actions completely disagree. As I say, they're all happy to tell you they want freedom, they want to end homelessness, they want to fix the financial market. And then in the same breath, they'll tell you they're going to go and vote for Labour, go and vote for Conservative. They're going to vote for reform because we need to reform the system. We need to fix it. We need to cut the tumour out and then replace it with another one. We need to cure our cancer and then give ourselves HIV. That'll fix it. That'll cure it. Happy days. It's not like we need to, annihilate the system head to toe. No, we need to reform it. We are free, don't you know? We just have little things that are problems. People's actions and their belief systems completely head to toe contradict what they say that they want. They believe one thing, they do the other. They're running around the hamster wheel, and it's all manipulated into them. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. It will always be that way for the end of time. Not my opinion. Moral relativism makes true freedom impossible. Because if freedom and morality are linked, if we cannot agree and we think that morality is something other than what it actually truly exists as, we're going to be living for something else. We're going to be constantly divided. We will not be able to actually align with the fact of the matter of what morality is. And then how do we expect freedom to come about if we don't live in harmony with that morality and we don't increase it gradually? We are not going to be free ever, ever. It makes it impossible. The more freedom there is, the less tyranny. There's less slavery and less suffering as more freedom increases. And this is, of course, because morality goes with it as well. Because morality, if people actually lived in it, especially in the majority, that in its face is not going to allow slavery, suffering, and tyranny, because it's the polar opposite. It's about not enslaving your fellow man. It's about not doing any harm. Ultimately, we must simply discover moral objectivity. Relativism and man's law will only fix one small problem and create 4 new ones. And it will go round and round and round and round, adding more and more and more and more and more until we have thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of laws, when actually there is one law only. There is only one law. Simple as that. And do you know what that law is? Well, love is the law. As the Thelemic occult tradition will tell you, love is the law. Love under will. We don't need thousands of books, pages and books of this law and this bill and this policy. All we need to understand is do no harm. Of course, there are implications and extensions that need to be discussed, but it's as simple as that. We must understand the objective fact of the matter. But when we do understand the fact of the matter, of course, we can actually manifest what we want, what we truly want and what we truly need. We can have real attraction. We can utilize the law of correspondence, because, well, this states for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. What you think about comes to you ultimately, but also, more importantly, what you think, feel, and then do, and especially when they're in alignment, that will bring about the result. And when you're conscious of that, and when you utilize it and wisely apply it, and especially hang around with people that are doing the same, you really can attract some great things. At all times, the universe is conspiring for you. It's trying to give you better things. It's trying to give you more opportunities and knowledge, and it's trying to help you. Ultimately, it's trying to help you do your purpose here on this planet. And for as long as we support the wrong things, we do the wrong things, and we don't recognize our true path, we're living in opposition to this. We're not living in the slipstream. We are ultimately disrespecting existence. And then, as the quote said earlier, we should expect resistance, because we have to understand the will of the Creator and live in alignment with it. All you simply have to do is just want what you want, what you need even. Because the universe is always conspiring for you. You must align with it, trust it, always trust the process, but work for it, of course, but also help it. Don't just sit back and be a passive receiver and say, it's coming, it's coming. Yes, ask and ye shall receive, absolutely. Speak it, affirm it, vocalize it, know it, think about it a lot, but it's about what you do. Don't just be an armchair quarterback. Don't just be sitting waiting around saying it'll come, it'll come, it'll come. Don't count on it. Know it will come one day, but know that you're going to have to act for it, and know that that action is going to be worth it and going to bring about the result that you're working for. That's the secret. And they leave that part out in the secret, because it's a secret, but not anymore. So figure it out. Energy flows where attention goes. What you consistently think of and work for will come to you. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions must always align, because they are always being used. And for as long as they are divided and one says one thing, one says another, and they are in disharmony, our actions are going to be random. They're going to be chaotic, confused. They're not going to be utilizing our ability and our potential to manifest what we truly need. We absorb the available information. We decide what to do with it. And then the quality of the decision that is made based on what we've decided to look into and the available information, and the quality of it, of all of that, determines the quality of behavior. The quality of the decision will always be on the same level to the quality of the behavior. We can only get something similar to or lesser than that which we give in. We cannot throw a piece of dog poo at a wall and then expect a Van Gogh painting to just appear. You're only going to be able to get a result out of throwing that poo on the wall. You're only going to be able to get a equal result to that, because that's how the laws of nature work. And once again, it's observable. You can see this. You can only get it out. It's like a computer, input, processing, and output, just like the trivium, once again. It's all about the quality of the information that we absorb, and then what is done with it. And it will determine the quality of behavior based on the quality of the decision. We decide what to do. Thoughts, emotions, and actions must align. Constant action based in knowledge, care, and unity will always bring the best result about in the world. You want to be in alignment with the will of the Creator. You want to be in the slipstream of creation. As many occult schools would say, labore et constantia, meaning work in constancy. It's all about that eighth principle, care. What you care to do most of the time, what you think about most of the time, and what you do and what your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with and for, that is what you will get out in the universe. It's a correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. You get what you're given. You reap what you sow. It's not all just random. It's not all just by chance and possibility and the will of the Creator. It's our will. It's free will. It's the greatest gift we've been given, and it's what we're here to do, to utilize, so that we can create, learn, and grow. And when we're in that slipstream of creation, we minimize all the obstacles and we can flourish. So knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, input, processing, and output, grammar, logic, rhetoric. The possession of those things in that order. The possession of that, or the lack of that, will determine the outcome of what you get. It will either be chaos, or it will be good, or it will be order. Freedom, slavery, knowledge, ignorance, good versus bad, etc. It's a formula. So, just to reiterate, just a graph here to a sort of better description to visualize how our reality is actually built. We first have the knowledge based on the available information. We have the knowledge or the lack thereof if we're ignorant. Then we have the understanding or the lack thereof, which influences our decision-making processes. The quality of those will influence our behavior, which is known as wisdom or lack thereof. And then the quality of that behavior will reflect in the generated result, because it's out in manifested reality. It's the realm of effects, not cause anymore. Will it be order or chaos? Well, it's all based on the quality of that human behavior, which is based on the quality of the decision-making processes, which is based on the available information. And thankfully, in this day and age, in the 21st century, year 2024, we have all of the occult information. We have all of the hidden philosophical, scientific, mathematical information at our fingertips. We don't know everything, but we know a hell of a lot, and it's at our fingertips. We don't have to go to the library in an encyclopedia. You don't have to do years of study. You don't have to go to university to learn this. You can Google search it, and you can get this information available, have good decision-making processes, good quality ones. This will inform your behavior, and then over time, in constancy, our manifested reality will be fantastic because it will reflect from our behavior quality. That, my friends, is how we manifest our reality. It's not some mystical woo-woo, pray all day long, although that can assist you if that's your thing, but it's not a matter of faith, it's not a matter of belief, it's not a matter of chance or I'm just a lucky person. It's a matter of your possession of knowledge, willpower, care, and what you do most of the time. It's all about wisdom and knowledge. All of those things on the positive polarity expressions of natural law, that's what it's all about. Because if you're living on the other side, you're only going to get suffering, you're only going to get the negative things, and you're going to keep doing that again and again and again and again until we learn our lesson, as long as it takes. And now, unfortunately, one other hugely misunderstood concept human rights. People will happily tell you human rights is water, food, shelter, money, whatever, okay? Human rights are much simpler than that. They don't have to be specific items, because we could sit here all day long explaining and defining and listing things that we're allowed to do, things that we can do, things that we have the right to do, and the things that we deserve. Human rights are simpler. Do you know why? Because human rights are actions, they are not things, and we can define them in a perfectly simple way. That doesn't mean we have to have such an ambiguous thing in which allows space for people to, abuse human rights. And actually, the root cause of all suffering is the misunderstanding of this. Because we must understand our rights, because then everything that isn't our rights, aka wrong, that's what we can't do. All we have the right to do is do our rights. They are actions. Simple as that. So public perception can never, ever alter what a right is. Doesn't matter about a country, doesn't matter about the politics, the history, the traditions. We cannot decide what a right is and isn't. We can only believe that we can alter them and suspend them and change them and speak them down and write them down. We cannot create, remove, or designate any of them, ever. We are not God. So regardless of time, location, culture, religion, population, condition, etc., rights cannot change ever. Good and bad remains the same for all of time, since it began, since it ended. Cannot change. We are here to discover it and abide by it. There are so many rights, we can spend all day listing them. So instead, we must find a better way to define what rights are and to be able to list and understand what our rights are and understand what our rights are not. And this is known as the apophatic method, the true logical reasoning method, especially when it comes to human rights. This, especially when combined with the trivium and philosophy, things like that, you will be unstoppable. Learning these secrets will make you unstoppable. This is what it means to be a true magician: action at a distance, harmony with the laws of the creator, and bringing about abundance and change within the world based on the application of the laws of nature. So the word apophatic comes from the Greek apopheni, simply meaning to say no, or to not say, or to say what something is not. It is used in the apophatic inquiry method, the way in which we can find something out or inquire something using the apophatic method. And this basically is to define what something is based on defining and excluding what it is not. Because, as we've seen, we could spend all day long, we could spend years listing what we can do, but we could sit here for a few short minutes explaining what we cannot do. So, if we understand what we cannot do, if we exclude all of that, we can therefore, everything that's left over is what we have the right to do. That's what the apophatic method is. It's much simpler and it's quite elegant. So, to understand what a right is, we eliminate what a right is not. A right, my friends, is an action that does not cause harm to any other sentient being. It's as simple as that. Human rights is not necessarily food, water, shelter, all of those other things. Of course, we deserve them and we need them to live, and there are value in those things, and we need to discuss, the possession of them, and we all need them. But they are not our rights. Specifically, a right is an action that does not cause harm to any other sentient being. We've discussed what sentient beings are. They are anyone with the capacity to move independently upon the earth. So not plants, but yes, animals, because they can move independently. They have a nervous system. They have spines more often than not. They can walk around. They are sentient. They are alive. They are conscious in some form. So they are the sentient beings. And anything that causes harm to them, which of course harm we are going to have to explain and define and specify what that is, because there is harm that we can cause, and no, harm is not relative. There is a truth to the matter. Who'd have guessed? But any action that causes harm to another sentient being is a wrong. We have the right to do no harm. So, human rights extended. Ultimately, you can summarize human rights as do no harm, but take no shit. Water, food, shelter, etc. They are rights, of course, they're included in things that we need. But doing no harm is our rights. It is, drinking a glass of water, eating a sandwich, sitting under a gazebo for shelter from the rain. We can do that all day long because you're not harming another person. With certain foods, we can discuss where harm is involved. I'm sure you can imagine, but that's a very touchy topic for another time. But ultimately, if we are doing no harm in doing these actions, of course, water, food, and shelter, and somewhere to live, it's a right because they're doing no harm to another person. If you can acquire something rightfully, you're doing no harm. You're not infringing upon anyone else's rights. It's a right. It's as simple as that. So it goes without saying. Humanity has been fooled into supporting rulership that threatens violence if they want to act in ways that do not actually do any harm. So, victimless crimes, in other words, people think that they are still crimes, but even though there is no victim. So, if someone were to get a illegal substance, take it into their body, regardless of what you may want to say, and regardless of how much harm they may even be doing to themselves, their own body is their own property, as we'll get into, because all rights are property rights. Their own body is their own property. If they wanted to take a substance into their own body, they have the right to do so. They do not have the right to force anyone else to take that substance, because then there is no consent. They are, it's a form of assault, I guess you could say, or coercion, if you had to force someone else to do that. But if they wanted to consensually take a substance into their own body, especially a substance that grows out of the ground, there is no harm being done in that action. That is not harmful, but it is illegal. It'll get you put in a cage, or maybe even killed in some places if you are found with a substance that does no harm to other people, probably doesn't even do any harm to you, and allows you to expand your own consciousness, yet it's illegal. Just a perfect example of moral relativity at its finest. Man saying, I come up with what's right and wrong, even though it does no harm. There are many examples of this, and it goes beyond substances. We're talking about licenses, permits for certain things, for specific, just little things that you can and can't do, even though there's no harm being done. They are enforced under the threat of violence and the threat of financial fines, or getting put in a cage, or even worse, they put under the threat of those if you don't comply with someone saying, you're not allowed to do this now. And in 50 years ago, you were fine to do it, but now you're not. It's contradictions head to toe, and people don't recognise it. And even if they do recognise it, they like to complain, but they don't do anything about it. It's a contradiction to believe in people having the right to stop people exercising their rights. We are not able to ever give other people rights that we never once had ourselves. If I never in a million years have the right to rule over someone else and rightfully own them and claim ownership upon their body and their property, if I never have that ability and that right, no matter how many people come together and agree and justify, we can never give over and create that right to give over to other people, aka the police, the government, whatever. That can never be created and never be given over to other people, ever, because we never once had it. If I have a glass of water that's half full, I cannot go over to 3 other glasses and fill all 3 of those up to the top, because I never had enough water to do so. I cannot give out anything else, anything more than what I've already got. And all we have is the right to own our own bodies and do no harm to anyone else, so we can never ever give other people the right to harm others and coerce and commit violence over them, no matter how many people come together. To prevent the expression of rights is to claim ownership of that person. And if I was to say to any random person, if you were to go and ask your friend now, what word first comes to mind if I say the claiming of ownership on someone else and their body and their property? 9.9 times out of 10, someone will say the word slavery when talking about claiming ownership and claiming to be a master over another. That is slavery. That is what we have now. We have the preventing of people expressing their rights in different forms, and that is the claim of ownership over people without their consent. That is slavery. And then take on the mass form in forms of government. It's slavery at best, and at worst, it's claiming to be God. Satanism at its finest. I'm God. There is no other God. I create the law. It's all about me and my ego. We can create rights, and we can send our little dogs to do our orders for us so we don't take any karma. You will find out one day the truth to that concept. And let's see who ends up on the right side of things. So, human rights, once again, slavery at its finest. There are many examples of slavery and its expressions in our current world, all coming from the lovely cult called government. Your purchase of 19.99 comes to $21.36 after theft. It's a double standard. Theft, it's called theft if there's one person holding a gun at someone else's head, but it's called taxation if that person holding the gun at the innocent person's head, if they're wearing a uniform, the person holding the gun, if they've got a little nice uniform and a nice hat and a nice badge, and I did my training for a few years and I sat behind a desk and I say, give me my money now, we come up with this random number that you have to pay us, otherwise violence happens. It's theft, folks. Call it what you want. It's theft, it's slavery, it's violence. Strip away the BS and you'll see the world as it truly is. To prohibit the use of any substance through the threat of violence or putting them in a cage is to claim ownership of the person over their body and their consciousness. That is slavery. Disagree all you like, but it's the fact of the matter. Each person owns their own body. It's in the word. And they are responsible for their own body. No one else can be responsible for it, and they were only responsible for their own actions. Claim victimhood, or you like, claim determinism, but you have the free will, you have responsibility for your thoughts, emotions, and actions, your expressions of consciousness. You have responsibility over yourself, and that's it. Over yourself and your property, but ultimately they're one and the same. Taxation is simply a group of self-elected people threatening violence upon those who do not pay an arbitrary amount to them. It is the theft of their labour. The common good argument is a poor attempt at trying to make a wrong into a right. No matter how many people come together and try and justify something, the word justification, coming from the Latin jus and facere, literally meaning to make a right, people trying to make a right will never end well, no matter what common good it is or whatever the will of the people or the government comes up with, or what the common good, the new world is going to bring us. It's a poor attempt at trying to create rights. No matter how many people come together, a wrong is still a wrong and a good is still a good. The Holocaust, genocide, was just as immoral then when it occurred as it is now. No matter how many people back then believed that it was necessary and that there was a difference between the races and that certain people had to die and that it was justified, doesn't matter. The action was still the same thing. It was still murder. wrong will always be wrong. Now, as much as those lovely, well-intending communists are going to tell you, property does exist. You can own things, perhaps not eternally. That's not what I'm talking about. But in this incarnation, in the time that you are in this body, in this flesh, and you are conscious for that small period of time, you can own things. Most importantly, your own body. You own yourself, you own your body, you own your consciousness, you are responsible for it. But of course, we can actually have physical property as well. Once again, it isn't eternal. It's not once I own something, even once I'm dead, I still own it. We can discuss on the specifics of things like that, but ultimately, property exists. We can obtain property. And ultimately, all rights are property rights. All the rights that we have are indispensably linked with property. You own your body, and you can have other rightful property, but notice the word rightful. You can't just steal something from another person because it's not your rightful property, as we'll discuss. Ownership comes about, the possession of something, having property. We get property, the ownership of it comes about through rightful possession. So we've possessed it rightfully. There was no harm being done. There was no transgressions against natural law that had to be put in place to actually to possess that in the first place. You got it rightfully in whatever means that was. You control the usage of it. You are regulating what's actually being done with it. You're actually using it. Of course, you're not just putting it on the side and just saying, "Oh, I own it," but I'm actually not using it. That's, greed and hoarding. But you also are responsible for it. Once again, it's not eternal ownership. It's not forever. It's in this small amount of time that we are incarnated on this earth. But once you've rightfully possessed it, rightfully gained it and obtained it, you control the usage of it, and you are responsible for the use and upkeep of it. Then you own it while you're alive. And take note, most importantly, your own body is what you own. You cannot own another human being, ever. You cannot own another's body. Who'd have guessed? It was right there. And to steal their property is wrong. It's immoral. You do not have the right to do so. You are stealing their property. It is theft, as we'll see. Life, rights, and freedom are all forms of property and thus need protecting from being stolen and being endangered. As we see in this image here, success, the big expanding balloon, beautiful balloon of success, is ever expanded and ever enlarged by and fueled and propelled by the understanding and utilization of self-governance. For as long as we understand that we rule ourselves and we are responsible for ourselves and our property, success will lift us up into the stars. And for as long as we don't understand self-governance and we believe that someone can rule us outside of ourselves and that they're going to fix all of our problems and that someone else has got our best interests at hand, for as long as we believe that, the balloon is going to be a saggy, limp nothing. You're not even going to lift off the ground, whereas all you have to do is realize, I'm responsible for my own body. I cannot rule another. No one can rule me. I'm going to live in alignment with natural law. You're going to see that balloon grow and grow and grow, and you're going to drift off into the cosmos. Once we take ownership of ourselves and our property, and we know our rights, and we don't infringe on others, like I say, do no harm, but take no crap. We don't infringe upon other people, freedom will follow. The voluntary exchange concept is optimal. Voluntarism would get us out of this mess, let's just say. So, of course, we know our rights, what we have the right to do and not to do. We can specify more the transgressions against natural law because, of course, we need to define what we don't have the right to do, other than just do no harm. We must, of course, understand what harm is and the transgressions of it. And this can be very easily summarized with the powerful number 7. Not only are there 7 principles, but there are 7 transgressions against natural law, the real 7 deadly sins. Every harmful action is a form of one thing: theft. You are stealing that which you do not have the right to take. Someone else has rightful property. You try and take it in whatever form. You try and infringe upon it. You try and desecrate it, you could say. You are trying to take that which you do not have the right to take. You are stealing. It's theft. Every form of it is theft because you are stealing something that is not yours. The real 7 deadly sins, the true transgressions against natural law, are not anger, jealousy, pride, envy, sloth, wrath, all those other things. They are vices. They are things that we shouldn't engage in because it's not good to be to always be angry. It's not good to eat too much. It's not good to be, too envious or jealous or prideful or, lazy. Those are vices. Those are things you don't want to engage in because it's not going to get you very far in what you do. But these are the true 7 deadly sins because you do these and you are only bringing about chaos. You are only doing that which is incorrect and wrong, and you are going to suffer accordingly through karma, because natural law and karma is one and the same. You get what you give, reap what you sow. You cannot escape cosmic justice. So these real 7 deadly sins instead are murder, aka the theft of life. You are murdering someone else because it's in the 10 Commandments actually wasn't do not, thou shalt not kill. It was actually thou shalt not murder. Murder and killing is different because killing is simply the act of just killing someone and just, ending their life. Whereas murder is cold-blooded, unnecessary, unjustified killing. You are, murdering someone. You're stealing their life. You're ending their life unjustly. Whereas we have the right to kill, as we'll see, but that's only in a certain situation, let's say. So murder is the theft of life. It's the, theft of their right to exist. Rape is the theft of sexual choice, of who they're going to sexually engage with. That's second. It's a theft once again, of course. Assault, that is, of course, the theft of someone's safety and someone's security and someone's wellness. You are assaulting them unjustly. You're the initiator upon them of the assault. Theft is, of course, the stealing of someone's rightful property, stealing someone else's actual items, theft itself. We have trespass, which is, of course, the theft of one's security and the right of their, their right to sort of be left alone and to have a secure location in which they're not going to, be infringed upon. Trespass, it's stealing their security, theft. Then we have coercion, which is the theft of someone else's choice and someone's actual consent in doing something. You are forcing them to do something under violence. And we see that lovely deadly sin being used every single day with every single law that is put into place. We are being coerced because if you don't follow it, especially taxation, you do not follow it, the boys in blue are going to come and get you. They're going to put you in a cage and you're going to be screwed, ultimately. So finally, we have murder, rape, assault, theft, trespass, coercion, and finally, willfully lying, or you could say deception. And this is because it is the theft of one's ability to understand the truth. It's the theft of one to make an informed decision, especially. This is the one in which we can, of course, have the most discussion on because it may be a bit not as simple and straightforward as the other ones, but ultimately, the true 7 deadly sins, they are all forms of theft. They are all taking something that is not rightfully yours. They all harm another human being. They are all forms of harm. Murder, rape, assault, theft, trespass, coercion, and willfully lying. They are all theft of something. They all infringe upon another's rights. And no matter what, a wrong can never be granted, can never be delegated or created by societies, by people, by councils, by writing things down, by a court, by a judge. You cannot give something out which you do not already have within yourself. No matter how many people come together and try and combine things and give it away, you cannot combine 100 cotton balls, white cotton balls. You cannot combine. You could put millions and millions and millions of cotton balls into one big massive pile, all white. But no matter how many white cotton balls you mash together, you're not going to get any. You're not going to be able to get a handful of blue cotton balls coming out of that pile. It's not the best analogy, but ultimately you cannot put loads of things together into one and say, now we can create this one other thing, which is actually a complete separate different thing, which we never even had in the first place. If all of those cotton balls were white in the big pile and there was no blue cotton balls, how do you expect to get a blue cotton ball handful out of there? You cannot. It's not possible. We cannot give other people rights. We cannot say, okay, these people can do this, these can do this. It's for the common good. Doesn't matter. It is relative when you do that. And that is against natural law. Once again, not my opinion. Find it out for yourself. Oppose the laws of nature for yourself, and you will see what happens. All you have to do, especially understanding the aggregate level of it, is look at society, see what we get. We only get more suffering. We only get more problems. We only get more incompetence and quote-unquote accidents. We only get more and more and more and more of them. While we have this system in place, it will not get better because we cannot. Because it is a law, it is a formula. Okay, we cannot have a bunch of liars and a bunch of corrupt scum at the top lying through their teeth. We cannot have those in power running things and then magically have a utopia, a lovely place of beauty and, wisdom and love. That cannot come about. It's not possible. It's impossible. So simply do not steal in any form. And do not support the use of that stealing. Do not support the coercive systems. Do not support any of these things. Never conduct those things ever. Never ever steal in any form ever, or at least do at least harm possible. And believe me, or don't believe me even, creation will protect you. Creation will provide all of the opportunities you need. Will provide you all of the goods that you need. You will be in this slipstream of creation. All you have to do is do not steal. Do not support the stealing institutions and constantly seek knowledge. Live in agape love. Follow the truth. Now, what we really need to do is develop conscience, also known as common sense. But unfortunately, as the saying goes, common sense is not all that common, unfortunately. So we must, of course, confront it and understand what it truly is, because we all need a conscience so that we can act correctly, because you need to act out your conscience to do good. Albert Einstein said, never do anything against conscience, even if the state demands it. The state have demanded going against conscience previously in history, especially in wars. They demand some people to go against it now, and we are rapidly approaching a time in which we are all going to have to go against our conscience just to live a daily life, because it's an inevitable road when we exist in a state of slavery. We support systems that are immoral now. Common sense is not all that common. Doing what is right will bring about maximum abundance and maximum protection. The word conscience comes from the Latin con, meaning together, and sciere, meaning to know. So conscience is to know together, or some say it means to know deeply. But mainly, it means to know together, meaning everyone together knowing the truth, knowing together. Conscience, all common sense. That's what it is. You simply need common sense, conscience. It should be common sense to have a definitive knowledge of right and wrong, as it is written on the human heart and our intuition. But since from birth, from the moment that you come out into this world and you see the bright white light, it is heavily programmed out of us. We are traumatized. We are programmed. Conscience is beaten out of us, and curiosity and wisdom and drive is eliminated to the best of their ability when we go through the public schooling. Every action is of our own free will. Where we choose right or choose wrong, we act out of love or fear, and exercising conscience is the highest of goods. Doing what is right in accordance with moral law, with natural law, is what is good. It's what we're here to do. To do anything else is foolish. You're setting yourself up for failure. Equality. People love to preach equality between genders, equality between races, when actually we are all equal. There is only one race, that is the human race. We are all equal under natural law, equal under the laws of the Creator. We are all equal under nature, and its laws apply equally to all of us. There is no discrimination, there is no differentiation, no separation. We are all one, and the laws apply to us all equally, unwaveringly, perfectly. We have to discover them and balance with them. No one has more or less rights than another, and they cannot be given away, they cannot be delegated, they cannot be shifted, responsibility cannot be given up, cannot be given over. Rights are not man-made, they are made from birth. They are our birthright, and they only cease when our consciousness does. Despite the different appearance, life situations, colours of people's skin, their gender and their beliefs, we all, on the most fundamental, foundational level, are one. We are all the same consciousness. They are all different expressions of the same thing in different experiences. No one is special. No one is different. We are all one and the same, experiencing life differently. So now we live in a life of conscience, accordance with natural law, and of course, it must follow, we want to gain enlightenment. It's what my other presentation, The One Great Path, was talking about. The One Great Path to Enlightenment. We are here to learn and grow in consciousness, but more importantly, we are here to ultimately become enlightened. And as many would state, and I would heavily agree, we are here in expressing life in consciousness on planet Earth. Many say, and I agree, that we are going round and round and round, reincarnating until we enlighten ourselves, until we turn that light on within ourselves, until we wake up, learn the truth, and do what's right. And until we do that, we're going round and round and round with this, like the snake eating its tail. We are here to become enlightened. And to do that, we must understand the pillars of enlightenment. The two pillars, it's why the two pillars are heavily symbolic throughout time. That it's why it's built in architecture and used in government, and it's used in occultism, Freemasonry, things like that. Pillars are very symbolic, and there are two for enlightenment. Polarity exists, as we saw in the 7 principles. There are the two polar principles, which also include gender, male and female, to maximize the understanding and application of natural law and human rights. We can understand and apply the pillars of enlightenment, the masculine and the feminine pillars of enlightenment, also known as the self-defense principle and the non-aggression principle, do no harm, take no crap. The sacred masculine, first pillar. The pillar on the left, the self-defense principle. This states that those with sentience, those which are sentient, have the right to defend themselves from harm and violence. If someone infringes upon us, tries to steal our property, tries to harm us and commit violence, commit harm to try and steal anything from us, because harm, as we've seen, harm is simply the theft of something. Harm is the infringement upon another's rights. To harm someone is to try and steal from them. We have the right to defend ourselves, even up to the point of deadly force, if necessary, with whatever force is necessary to put the infringer down, the violent person down. We have the right to defend ourselves. As we are sentient, we have the right to defend ourselves from violence and harm. Also, don't forget and don't misrepresent that these pillars, these masculine and feminine dynamics, both in the brain and both on the pillars of enlightenment, they are not to be confused with biological gender. They are not the same. It doesn't mean that only men have the right to express this, or only men have the left brain of the left hemisphere of the brain. It's a dynamic, it's a polarity, it's a concept, the masculine and feminine. They are not to be confused with biological gender. They are conceptual gender. There is a sacred masculine and sacred feminine that exist as dynamics, not only expressed through male and female humans. So next we have the sacred feminine pillar of enlightenment. This is known as the non-aggression principle, stating to do no harm or violence upon another person, do not infringe upon another's rights, do not infringe or coerce upon their free will choice. We cannot steal from another person, we cannot take what's rightfully ours, we cannot infringe upon someone else's right to remain unharmed. We all have these two dynamics within us. It is our job to unify them and apply them in our life, to have them both rock solid, pillar on the left, pillar on the right, masculine, feminine, strong, holistic, unified. Two of those, bring them together, form that royal arch that goes over the top of them, the lintel, the arch that forms over those that eventually becomes a triangle at the top. The center path, the three come together, form the sacred arch, bring them both together, unify the pillars of enlightenment. It is our job to unify these, apply them in our life, and to not be imbalanced. We cannot live in one or the other. We cannot be imbalanced or inactive or ignorant. We must balance them together. We must learn and constantly try to apply them and understand them at all times. And if everyone did, we would be free. We must not seek wholeness externally. We must look within and have these unified. Unify our internal dynamics, and then the external dynamics will follow. As above, so below. This internal unity and understanding is the top thing that will bring you manifestation, and it's the most feared by the world dominators that people learn this. It's very simple, it's very elegant, it's powerful, and yet people are scared of it, people have no idea, and it's being completely hidden from us and used against us. If everyone understood the sacred feminine and sacred masculine of do no harm, take no shit, infringe upon no one else, and if someone does infringe upon you, you have the right to put them down accordingly. They have given up their rights in a sense. As soon as they begin the initiation of harm upon someone else, they have basically given their rights up and said, I've done that which is incorrect. I am allowing myself and basically consenting to have someone retaliate to protect themselves, because it's the self-defense principle. It's the sacred masculine. Unity within ourselves and unity amongst ourselves will bring strength, courage, and non-compliance. We will begin to say no, the lost word. In a world of manufactured lack and ignorance and on artificiality, we would actually find unity within the two pillars. It's all about unifying the two. And it was expressed perfectly through the allegorical existence of Jesus, regardless of if you want to say that Jesus was real, metaphorical, whatever. It exists as a concept, and we should follow in Christ's footsteps. I heavily discuss this in my podcast series on Spotify and on the website, but ultimately, get you a Messiah that can do both, that can whoop someone's ass if they see a wrongdoing, like he did with the temple money changers, where he got the whip out and started flipping tables, or you can sit down, perform some miracles, be one with nature, help the children, do good in the world. You can do both. You can defend yourself, but you can also be caring. You can have the masculine and feminine dynamics simultaneously. And that is the only true path. The combination of both, not being in an imbalance of either, because then you'll only bring about an imbalance as a result. So the true path to freedom is to beware of the ism. If you are to follow an ism, instead of being a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew, Hindu, a conservative, a liberal, a communist, you, if anything, should be an omnist. One who believes that no one religion is the only truth, whether that is a mainstream religion, like I've mentioned, or a religion in the form of government, in the form of religiously believing in money, in authority, in external solutions. One should believe and should understand and know that there is no religion, one religion that is the only truth, but in fact, the truth remains scattered throughout all of them. And then we must combine all of them, as many as possible, take out all the inconsistencies and all the dogma and all the ritual, and just only have the truth and the love and the man-made aspects of them, and only use those. That is the truth, where the truth lies in the combination of all. It's all about being holistic, unified, balanced, not just taking one, clinging onto it, and then saying, no matter what else changes, it's me and my holy book. That's it. The path to freedom is one in which someone understands that God or the creator or the higher power or the grand architect, whatever you want to call the creator of the universe, it exists in some form for us to discover, search for ourselves, and have a one-to-one connection with, utilizing our own virtues, not blindly following dogma or a belief system or a preacher or someone that claims to be divinely chosen by the creator. When you really understand what God is, you would understand that there is no ability and there is no mention, there is no possibility, no chance in hell that this creator would say, screw everyone else, I'm going to treat this one person as if he's my chosen one, or this certain bloodline, or this certain group of people, they're allowed to rule over my other children because I said so, because I just randomly said, yeah, sure, you can just do that. Just like in the Old Testament. There are people that see themselves as gods, and that's why ultimately the rulers of the world are satanic, and the people, the ants, they have the same mindset, but of course not in the sense of trying to rule over others. They just simply believe me, ego is God. When actually the true path to freedom is understanding that a creator form exists in some form. Do not believe in dogma or a belief system. Understand that there is a truth to discover and laws to abide by. You must do your best to get a holistic understanding of the truth, discover the observable laws of nature and morality. Live in harmony with the truth, in harmony with truth, love, and freedom, and then help others. And then no harm can result. It is impossible. It is formulaically, ideologically impossible to be any different. No harm can result if one lives in harmony, in truth, love, and freedom, lives and acts and cares out of love. They can only get the resultant result of order. And of course, on the flip side, only get chaos when they live in fear and confusion and ignorance. No religious leaders or authorities are ever legitimate. We all understand the failures of those. I don't even have to mention the hundreds, if not thousands, if not more, cases of priests being paedophiles, of corrupt politicians, of lying media, of corrupt doctors and biased scientists and historians, everyone is flawed. People lie, and especially the religious leaders and the quote-unquote authorities, they have you hoodwinked. Whether they know it or not, more often than not, they probably do. They understand what they're doing. And either way, the people believe in it and think that there are religious leaders that exist rightfully. That authority can actually exist in the realm of man when the only true authority is the law. The true, capital L, Creator's law. Not man's law. We are nothing in comparison to the actual true laws of nature. We cannot know the totality of the mind of God, the completion of all of it, because we are not God. We may be expressions of it, but until the point of which we are completely just everything on God and we are everything that is, we cannot know completely everything unless we are God. We are in a form, like I say, God, but we cannot know the totality of the mind of God, at least in this incarnation. But what we can know is certain things. We can get an understanding of some things. We can't just know nothing. And we can absolutely know that this Creator, He, if you want to call it, more, I'd rather just call it an it or a them, because it's everything. It's not just a he, it's not just a man on a cloud. He exists in some form. God exists. You may have to spend years trying to discover that and trying to figure out for yourself, but as even the occult societies of the past knew, you're lost if you are an atheist. There are no atheists in foxholes, and no one dies an atheist. I'm not here to tell you what God is, to start defining it or arguing exactly for specific things. We'd be here all day. And there are enough philosophers of the past that have tried to do that, so I'll spare the time. I'm not here to tell you what God completely is, only that one exists in some form and that we are to discover it using our intellectual virtues, our mind's abilities, and our connection with consciousness. And if all else fails, a few hits of DMT will help you understand the existence of God. If anyone wants to do God's will, he will understand whether the teaching is from God or if I'm speaking on my own. Especially in reference to the quote-unquote holy books like the Bible, you have to use your own discernment into what is actually God's word, what's God's will, or if man has been speaking on his own and what man has said, I'm going to put this in there because I want to benefit or I want to control people, or what I've taken out. Because if you look into what was actually taken out of the Bible, you would be astonished the amount of stuff that was taken away. And with all the information that's been just tucked away in the Vatican archives and in the basements of certain museums, you'd be baffled about what's actually gone on in history and what's been hidden up and what's been added to the Bible especially. You have to use your own discernment.